Alice in Wonderland is a classic. Its creative plot and interesting characters have captivated us for generations. And each time there is a new twist, a new thing that will hook us right back into it, which is how I first discovered this video game. Habromania is a video game made by Sydney Collins, better known as Symphony Sonata. In this game, we follow 19-year-old Alice trying to escape Wonderland. Throughout both the short summary on Steam and the trailer, we can see it has tried to be as vague as possible for its release. So, here I am trying to figure out at least some type of story based on the trailer. And yes, while we do have some teasers on YouTube and Instagram, as far as I know, this is the only piece of official information. Plus, with this I already had more than enough. So, let's start with the beginning. Alice and the real world. First of all, we have her family member, which we know a few things about. For example, he's in the military and got hurt enough to be sent back home. This is implied with his uniform, the bandages around his arm, and that Alice is the one in charge of driving. In general, I would guess that he is fairly young, but massive experience because he has a few medals in his uniform. I tried to find something else, but not knowing the nationality makes it almost impossible. Which brings us to the next topic, countries. The obvious jump is to say that they are British, like in the book. Plus, we can find the British flag on the ground, and Alice drives on the right side, so they must be British. Which is something I completely agree with, but that she is British doesn't necessarily mean other countries won't be talked about. For example, in the menu with the journal we can see some newspapers, and in one of them they seem to be talking about Germany. Though I haven't figured out what they are actually saying yet, and while it may only be a little detail, it's a detail they decided to add. Maybe it's to help us with the timeline, or they bring the war up, we already have the family member, but either way, I believe it will mean something. And while we may not have a year or some type of historic timeline, there seems to be different key moments in the trailer that can be put in the timeline of the game, at least for now. For me, it all starts out when Alice picks up the family member. And this may be due to a car crash or something else later, an accident happens, which is probably lethal for the family member, or at least is heavily implied. I mean, just look at his head. When the police arrives, we go to the second scene, per se. I mostly think the two police scenes we see on the trailer happen due to the same accident, due to two reasons. First of all, we have that she's clearly wearing the same clothes, and second, it would be quite weird for her to be in two different accidents big enough to involve the police. Either way, she is then admitted into a hospital, maybe due to an injury we cannot see or the shock of the accident, where things must not go her way because there is another incident inside it. Wonderland is divided in different parts, as shown in the wood sign at the forest. Some of them are unimportant, such as somewhere, nowhere, this way, etc., but there are a few that pique my interest. The main one is the Red Kingdom. The sign is not like the others, it's quite formal and well kept, which is just another way of showing their power and territory. There is another one, maybe not as important but is still curious to me, which is the White Kingdom's one. I thought it was quite odd, especially taking into account we don't seem to go to a territory or even meet the White Queen. Well, I'm saying this, but I believe we can find a scene where we might be in her kingdom. This is just at the beginning, when Alice wakes up. She's over a white table with white chairs and not a single red piece, which we know is common in the Red Kingdom. We also know it's not the Red Kingdom because we already wake up once over a table and they are quite different scenes. Apart from this, there isn't much else to talk about. So, let's head right into the Red Kingdom and the Queen of Hearts. I think we can all agree that the garden we see is part of the Red Kingdom, mostly due to the heart-shaped chairs, though it is curious that most roses are white. And in the garden we can also see some symbols that come up time and time again. The obvious one is clearly the heart, which is in the name, the Queen of Hearts. The other one, the rose, is a bit of a mix, because while yes, we do have the white roses that are painted red in the book, in the game it isn't this way, at least we don't see it like that. Let me explain. All roses we see on the trailer are white, except in the final drawing. In it, we can see 3 red roses, while the rest are mostly white. I say this because they are painted with what seems to be blood, and guess what's also stained? Exactly, the Queen's portrait. So I think we can all agree that it isn't setting up for a nice travel through the Red Kingdom, which is only highlighted by the axe. The axe I'm talking about is mostly seen in two places. First of all, in the Queen's portrait, and second, in one of the statues, with a clear heart symbol. Which makes me bring up another topic, the statues. I think it's fair to assume that these might be Athena and Aphrodite, two of the most known goddesses from Greek mythology. Just in case you don't know who they are, Athena is the goddess of wisdom, strategic warfare, handicrafts, and the patron goddess of the city of Athens, while Aphrodite is the goddess of love, desire, beauty, and pleasure. It surprised me that they chose these two. They never had any clear type of relationship, though they were rivals during the Trojan War. But maybe, and clearly this is just rambling because we don't know actually anything about the game, it might be that Aphrodite is symbolized in the White Kingdom. For example, she's holding the roses, which during the whole playthrough we see as mostly right, and her rivalry with Athena during the Trojan War could be translated into the political view of Wonderland. Plus, it is clear that Athena represents the Red Kingdom. She has the axe and the heart-shaped details. So, if Athena is another of the Red Kingdom's symbols, we can understand that the palace also is also in the kingdom's territory, since palace is another name for Athena, which would mean that the piano and other scenes are inside the kingdom as well. And with this, we can finally talk about the main topic of the Red Kingdom, the Queen of Hearts. Sadly, she doesn't have a ton of scenes, mainly two, at least that I can see. In the first scene, we see a Queen of Hearts who doesn't look like we'd expect. She's wearing common clothes and her hair is messily done into braids. She's also interacting with a blue butterfly, which might be a representation of Alice. On the second, though, it's not that nice. For once, we don't actually see her, just a portrait, but it tells us quite a lot. She's clearly the queen by then, which wasn't as clear in the first scene, and she's much more determined in every way. We can mostly see this with the axe, which is curiously quite simple, and of course, the blood. Now, it would be easy to just say, oh, it's a comparison between the past and the present, but there is a scene that totally changes this. You can find this scene after the tea party, and for just a second, you can see a young Queen of Hearts with the dead body of the Mad Hatter, which we know must happen throughout the story because we literally drink tea with him, and he seems pretty alive by then. This isn't the only body we find in the Red Territory though. There is another one of a traveler or a messenger or something like that, which we can interact with. Of course, this brings me to the next part of the Wonderland, the tea party, which we will probably attend. Clearly, the protagonist of the tea party is the Mad Hatter, which we know is going to die, probably, I guess in some sort of way, even if it's just like in a dream or something. Apart from that though, we don't know much. We know at least at some point we get along, because we're at the tea party, and he does seem to have a relationship with the Queen of Hearts. In general, there isn't much to say about the tea party, but it does seem to hold some kind of significance, since in the secret scene per se, they are also drinking tea. Well, I'm telling you all of this, but he does appear once more. His skull appears in the cards. The cards are quite interesting in general. At first, when I saw them, I thought for a moment it would be like French suited playing cards. But they aren't. They are the tarot cards, which seems to me that is on the nose about what they mean, and what they show us only help my ideas. But first, let's talk about the back, which, first of all, it is so detailed. On a first glance, you can find a ton of hearts, axes, roses, and even the crown of the Queen of Hearts, which probably means they must hold some kind of relationship with the Red Kingdom. Curiously though, you can also find the other card symbols, which could mean there are other kingdoms or just important families inside the Red Kingdom. But that's not the most important part at all, because as clear as day, we have the head of the Mad Hatter and the White Rabbit, someone we haven't met yet, and, well, of course, the cat. But let's see the only content we have of the actual card. The first one is the 0, which is clearly Alice, and is known as the Fool. Normally, this card is supposed to show the protagonist or the start of an adventure, but on the reverse, you can also see it as the ignorance of the danger you're in, which, honestly, with everything that's going on, it doesn't seem so strange. The other only card we see is the Emperor, which is the fourth card. Upright, it shows stability, protection, strategic action, etc. But in reverse, it can also mean excessive control, tyranny, struggles of authority, and more. And I thought that was the perfect card for the Queen of Hearts, but it isn't. It's a bunch of rats or mice. Now, there are clearly not any type of emperors that are rats or anything on the books, but while we don't have an emperor mice on the book, we do have the Mouse Tale, which is the story of a mouse that talks about the corruption in trial, which happens later on the book. And while there is a ton of things to talk about the cards, one of the most important ones, at least for me, is the cat. He mostly doesn't do much that we can see. He's there a couple scenes and Alice can interact with him, though he didn't respond and we couldn't even see the full message. But there is a scene which has made me obsessed that he's going to be a bigger enemy than the Queen of Hearts. In this scene, Alice is looking at her reflection in one of the houses only for the cat to appear. He slowly takes over the scene, but as he does this, we see Alice turning her eyes green due to the cat, which reminds me of a hidden scene. In real life, Alice is in a hallway full of blood that she doesn't really mind. She is in a hospital, supposedly, but she looks weird, almost like possessed, especially because she has green eyes. But she's not the only one getting possessed or abducted or whatever is happening. The Queen of Hearts is too. In the portrait, we can see her again with these green eyes. And in the places we can guess are the Red Kingdom, we can find so many cat symbols. So I wouldn't be surprised if, when we fight the Queen of Hearts, she's possessed and the cat is the real villain. Of course, I don't have answers for everything, and the cat is one of my biggest questions. It's a simple scene really, just a cat clock moving one side to the other. But he doesn't seem like the real cat at all, which just seems like another question without an answer, because if it was another type of symbol for the cat, why doesn't he have the same colors or patterns? And while I do think the Cheshire Cat is one of our enemies, there is another one, the White Being, because what is that? We see him on 3 scenes. The first one is when we directly see him through a painting that also appears inside a house, in which he hides from our view. On the second one, we see him close the door of what seems to be the same room. And lastly, we see him directly looking at us, but he seems like off, like deformed, like it isn't quite right. I wouldn't be surprised if it's supposed to show Alice's mental health. He may also be the one writing the sentences we see on the secret scenes. In general, both the White Being and the cat are a complete mystery. Now that I've already talked about the general ideas and the most important parts, we can go into the details. First of all, the amount of secret scenes you can find in this trailer is incredible. I mean, I have looked everywhere I can, but I wouldn't even be surprised if there's more I haven't found out. Now, I understand that these scenes are supposed to give us something to work with while the game doesn't come out, but there are 2 that I just don't understand at all. The first one is the one of Alice driving that already happened at the start, so I don't even know why they want it there. The second one, which is much more intriguing, is where we see her driving, again, though she's on the right side, which you could say it's a technical error or I just didn't understand it right, but even then, it's just another scene about Alice driving. It's weird that it happens so many times, right? The rest can be described as Wonderland shenanigans, though I am curious about the amount of destroyed landscapes we see, and the forest filled with suitcases and clocks. It kind of makes me wonder if people had to escape their towns, and probably their kingdom, through the forest. But that's not the only curious thing about the forest. It also introduces to the clock situation. What is the clock situation? Well, every time you search any clock, it's always marking 9 o'clock. And when I mean all, I mean, in the signaling too, more or less, in the same spot. And it's even in the title. I mean, it could mean so much stuff. Just as an example, it's a way of signaling left in the military, where the family member works. But it might also have to do with tarot cards, the ninth card being an important character or something completely new. Which brings me to another topic. A topic without an answer. Don't you miss a specific being obsessed with time? One of the most important characters in the book? Where's the rabbit? I mean, I know the creators are aware of its importance, and I hope this is just not to give everything away, but at least for now, it feels like where is Waldo? I mean, it would be kind of cool if the rabbit is the ninth card, since his obsession with time and all of that, and the clock's always hitting 9 o'clock. And that would explain also the secretism around the character, but then again, it's just speculation. But there is one more thing that I want to add before finish this off, and that is the eye color. And I know we already talked about this, green eyes equal the cat, probably, but there is something more. We are having the eat me, drink me ordeal, it appears in the poster, and it seems to be the main way of Alice getting those pink eyes and passing out. Another option is that the pink color comes from the tea at the party, since it comes from a teapot, and falls down to, you guessed it, a red rose. Maybe the Mad Hatter and the Queen of Hearts are allies? Maybe old friends? Who knows? After everything I've talked about and the amount of time it took me to find everything, I'm still surprised that this trailer is only 1 minute long. But for now, this is it. If you have any ideas or things you've noticed, I would be glad to see them.